You'll own nothing and be happy. Okay, you've probably heard that phrase floating around a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Often it sounds like some spooky prediction, right? Or a conspiracy theory, maybe even a threat.
Definitely gets used that way.
But what if?
Yeah.
What if it's actually simpler than that? What if it's just, describing something that's already happening, that's kind of already been done?
That's a really interesting way to frame it.
Yeah, so our mission really in this deep dive is to unpack it like that, not as some scary future thing, but as a way to see how the world's been sort of redesigned around us.
Okay.
We want to figure out why so many of us feel like we're playing a game we can't win.
Yeah.
And maybe help you understand the system underneath it all.
Yeah.
So you don't end up blaming yourself for struggles that are, well, maybe built in.
And it's fascinating because this shift, this idea, it didn't just appear overnight. It's got roots going back decades, built up slowly, cleverly, until, well, here we are. It's almost become background noise.
Exactly. So let's dig into this idea of ownership itself. Because for a lot of us, that word, it doesn't mean what it used to.
Right.
Our source uses this really powerful personal example. The author, they technically owned their home. They paid it off or, got the mortgage. But even with the mortgage gone, the bills just keep coming. Property taxes go up every single year. Insurance, homeowners, earthquake, fire, it's more than doubled.
Wow.
That escrow account that maybe felt manageable once, now it just eats up whole months of their income. It's like they say, there is no end, no arrival, only the slow and steady siphoning.
That just perfectly captures it, doesn't it? This core idea that ownership isn't a fixed state anymore, it's a subscription.
Yeah, the subscription.
Think about it. You pay and pay again for things you thought were yours. Like, remember buying records or
What?
software?
The CD-ROMs?
Exactly. Now it's Spotify, it's Adobe Cloud, it might even be features in your car, right? Heated seats on a subscription. It makes you ask, what does owning even mean if it needs endless payments? Or poof, it disappears because the license changed.
That's the heart of it. This new design, it's about being endlessly tethered, like you said. You're renting your time, leasing tools, clocking into platforms, not really jobs. And the kicker, you're somehow made to feel it's your fault if you're falling behind.
Right. That sense of personal failure.
So if we're all kind of tethered now, what does that do to our idea of economic freedom? Or even just feeling stable? The goalpost moved and maybe we didn't get the memo.
And these individual feelings, this constant hustle, it's not just you feeling it. It starts to click when you look at the bigger corporate picture.
Okay, yeah, let's go there, because this is where it gets pretty eye-opening. The source points out that some of the absolute richest companies, Amazon, Walmart, McDonald's, they often don't pay wages people can actually live on.
Right. Not a living wage.
Not because they can't afford to, but because, well, they don't really have to. They can count on government programs, food stamps, Medicaid, housing subsidies to basically make up the difference for their employees.
So the taxpayer is subsidizing their low wages.
Essentially, yeah. And the source calls this empire built on the silence that shame produces. People feel ashamed, they need help, so they stay quiet.
Wow. And the author shares this incredibly telling personal story. They have a doctorate, a lifetime teaching credential, multiple postgrad degrees, works as a public school teacher.
Sounds pretty qualified.
Absolutely. Yet they still rely on poverty tier discounts for utilities.
Yeah.
Still queue up for free vegetables at food distributions. And this isn't some one-off sad story. It's presented as structural.
Right. Part of the design.
Exactly. It reveals what the source calls a perfected system, not a broken one. A system designed to keep people just grateful for scraps and, frankly, too tired to protest.
And it gets darker. The author talks about working 5 jobs, writing, teaching, charity work, just to make what one job paid back in 2001.
5 jobs.
5 jobs. And that's not adjusted for inflation. It's, quote, 24 years of hustle to stay in place. And barely even doing that.
Gosh.
So, if you're out there listening and feeling that grind, that constant pressure, the message here is really clear. It's probably not you. Your effort is huge, but the system itself is set up to extract and extract until you break, and then kind of blame you for breaking.
That's a heavy thought.
It is.
Yeah.
And that extraction, it doesn't just stop with your paycheck. What about retirement? That whole dream.
Oh, retirement. Yeah.
The author mentions retiring early from the city of Los Angeles back in 2016.
Yeah.
Sounds great.
On the surface, yeah.
But they describe it less like a victory and more like crawling to higher ground as the floodwaters rose, their pension, which they're only starting to draw on now. It's worth half what it was in 2016.
And half. Wow.
The bottom line for them, they will never stop working.
Yeah.
And I mean, that resonates, doesn't it? Most of us probably can't imagine truly stopping.
No, that whole narrative, work hard, save up, enjoy your golden years, it feels like a story maybe our parents experienced, but
Well, the source says our generation was told it but never meant to inherit it.
raised in the ruins of the middle class, yeah.
Taught to just keep things tidy, scrub the floors clean, and call that stability. And now, the author, at 55, they feel outside that prime earning window. The job market isn't always welcoming. Plus, being autistic and ADHD and just plain tired, it highlights how the system itself creates these barriers. It's not just individual circumstance.
So what's left? The source calls it a broken ladder. We become masters of the workaround.
Side hustles?
Right. Bartering, side hustles, trying to turn skills into gigs, gigs into something resembling income. You even see these whole movements like FIRE financial independence, retire early.
Oh yeah, FIRE. Which often means living like a monk in your 20s and 30s, saving like crazy, just to maybe buy back a little time later. Or there's lean FIRE, even more frugal, or barista FIRE, where you still need a part-time job for basics. They aren't really dreams, are they? They're lifeboats.
That's a great way to put it, lifeboats.
Yeah.
And what's really fascinating is how this voluntary austerity, often born out of fear, gets repackaged as liberation.
Right, like choosing to barely scrape by is some kind of achievement.
Yeah. The source calls it restructuring, not retirement. It's not actual rest. It's just another version of staying alive. And that makes you wonder, what does a good life even mean when basic survival becomes the main goal for so many?
Okay, so if this isn't accidental, if it feels like a trap, who built it? The source is pretty direct here. Quote, "It was engineered, built slowly, cleverly over decades by those who inherited stability and chose to sell it off brick by brick for profit."
That's a strong claim, and to understand it, you kind of have to look back historically.
Yeah.
After World War II, especially in the U.S., there was this period where a sort of fragile middle-class paradise was built. Think public investment, the GI Bill, housing policy.
Right, the post-war boom.
Exactly. But, and this is crucial, the uplift wasn't universal. It was, as the source says, artificially, selectively applied. It mainly benefited white working families.
While excluding others.
Right. Through things like redlining black neighborhoods, indigenous dispossession, immigrant exclusion. That selective benefit, well, kind of laid the groundwork for later dismantling, didn't it? Those who got the stability could then pull up the ladder.
And the source argues that's basically what happened. The generations who benefited most, maybe boomers, their parents, they then voted, lobbied, changed laws in ways that dismantled that system for everyone else.
How so?
Well, swap solidarity for stocks. Move from union halls with collective bargaining to individual private 401ks. Cheered for deregulation, tax cuts, while, public schools maybe crumbled, public housing got sold off.
Creating a very different landscape.
A landscape where the goal became monetizing everything. Turning every common good into a private gain, where even rest had to somehow be productive. Now look, some would argue that's just market forces or smart financial planning by those generations. But the source frames it as a deliberate choice, a dismantling for profit.
And this really resonates with some classic critiques of capitalism. Marx talked about all that is solid melts into air, how capital dissolves traditions, communities, everything in its drive for expansion.
Nothing sacred but profit.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And you see echoes in other thinkers. Lenin saw imperialism as capitalism just purely focused on extraction. Fanon wrote powerfully about the deep psychological wounds of dispossession. Even leaders like Sankara in Africa pointed out how the system exploits land, labor, women.
So different perspectives converging on a similar idea of systemic exploitation.
Exactly. It's this pattern of turning everything into a resource to be extracted.
And we see that today, right? The source calls it rent-seeking at the molecular level. Things like printer ink subscriptions where your printer bricks if you don't pay monthly.
Yes. Or the heated seats in cars we mentioned.
Or music, movies, books, things you used to own, holding your hand maybe. Now they could just vanish overnight if a license changes. It feels like capitalism eating itself from the inside out, feeding not just on your work, but like every little interaction you have.
It creates this powerful illusion. We were promised choice by the market, but the source argues choice without ownership is illusion.
Because you don't actually own it.
Right. Everything's just a service, a revenue stream, no purchase, only access. You rent it forever, and the price goes up whenever they feel like it. Because nothing is truly sacred. Not your home, not your music, maybe not even aspects of your own body with health data and stuff.
So if nothing is sacred, What's left that can't be taken?
That is the question, isn't it?
Okay, so we peeled back the layers,
Yeah.
right? The myth of ownership, the shaky promise of retirement, seeing how the system might be working exactly as designed, not broken. Where does that leave us? Just despair.
Well, the author proposes something else. They call it revolutionary optimism.
Revolutionary optimism. Okay, what does that mean?
It starts with the question, if we have to live without owning in the traditional sense, how do we actually live well?
And the answer isn't individual bootstrapping.
No. The answer is not alone. It points towards community, not the market, as the source of real salvation, real sustenance.
Okay, like what?
The author gives these really grounded examples from their own life. The church pantry that asks no questions, the neighbor who shares extra eggs over the fence, the friend who always had the kettle on, a warm seat waiting no matter what.
Small things, but vital.
Vital. These gestures of survival wrapped in quiet dignity. No big headlines, no money changing hands, just care. Uncapitalized care. It suggests the commons, that idea of shared resources and mutual support, it still flickers even under all the concrete and commerce.
That really pushes back against the whole pull yourself up by your bootstraps myth, doesn't it? This idea that none of us make it through this alone. And maybe letting go of that fantasy of being totally self-sufficient. Maybe that's the first step to building something real, something collective. Like the source says, not owning things doesn't mean not having wealth. We can live richly, tenurely, and well without ever holding a deed. A shared shovel in a community garden suddenly feels more valuable than a fancy lawnmower you're paying off monthly, right? Because care isn't a subscription service.
And these aren't just nice ideas. They exist. The source lists concrete examples happening right now. Libraries lending out way more than books, sewing machines, tools, kitchen gadgets, baby carriers.
Tool shares in neighborhoods, yeah.
Tool shares, open source knowledge online, cooperative housing models, time banks where you trade skills, community land trusts taking land off the speculative market, childcare co-ops, community kitchens. These are real alternatives. It makes you think maybe capitalism did not invent care. It merely put a price tag on what was already ours.
So this revolutionary optimism, it's not just feeling hopeful, it's like a practice, a discipline.
Exactly. A discipline. A refusal to let despair win, to let it colonize our imagination of the future. It's saying, okay, even here, even now, we start building something else, not out of naivete, but out of love. And love, when it's rooted in justice, that becomes infrastructure. That becomes the bones of another world.
Wow, the bones of another world.
But it's a long game, right? If the track was laid over generations, then so too must be the work of dismantling it. The commons aren't going to magically reappear everywhere overnight.
It's incremental.
It's incremental. But every co-op that gets started, every community council meeting, every seed saved and shared, every abandoned building turned into shelter instead of just profit. These are all, as the source puts it, gestures of a people refusing to be owned. And you have to wonder, how do these small acts start to weave together into something bigger?
Yeah. And for Gen X, our generation, this feels particularly pointed, maybe. The source suggests we didn't just kind of sleepwalk through the changes we saw it happening. We watched the ladder get pulled up.
We remember the pensions dissolving.
Exactly. The social contract getting shredded and sold for scrap. We kind of knew the game was rigged early on. So maybe this isn't just about retirement for us. Maybe it's resistance.
And perhaps aging gives you that clarity. The fog lifts. The old myths like the American dream waiting for you after 65, they're just gone.
Which is bleak, but also
freeing, maybe. If we know we can't privately own our futures in the way we were told, well, then maybe we'll make them public again, collectively.
I like that, making them public again. The source paints this picture of what that could look like. Growing old together, maybe in co-ops, tending gardens, living in multi-generational homes.
Teaching each other skills the system didn't value.
Yeah. Rejecting that constant hustle culture, finding rhythm again, building new kinds of institutions from the ashes libraries that lend tools, transport that runs on care, kitchens that feed everyone who comes.
It's a vision where we refuse to be just, extracted from, ignored, discarded as we age. Where we choose to age defiantly visible, loud, loving. It's not just fighting back, it's a becoming, something new.
So let's end with this image from the source. Imagine it's 2030. And in this vision, Earth is not a product. She's a promise, and this time we kept it. So the question for you listening is maybe. What does it mean for you to tend the world together? What part can you play in keeping that promise?